Hello, I'm going to quickly go over the physical features of this Pentax K50. So first, the SD card slot is right here. You just push the card, it pops out. It's a little bit hard to get in there with the door in the way. For the battery, it's the same principle. You press this button, that opens up, and then this little tab, battery pops out. To take the lens off, there's a black button right here. Hold the black button down, there's twist. You're going to notice that there's a red dot on the mount here and a red dot on the lens. You just match the red dots up and then twist it back into place until it clicks. Now, I spend most of my time on the AV setting because I like to choose the depth of field, and I like the camera to choose the shutter speed and the ISO. That way I can just focus on composition and things like that. So on this camera there's a control dial here, so you see it changes the aperture right there. There's also a control dial on the front. Sometimes that's used to change other things, but in this setting it doesn't. I've set up U1 to be for landscape. It's hard set to ISO 100, and it's set to raw file, center point, autofocus. So unless the light's really good, you're going to want to be on a tripod for U1. For U2, I have it set up for sports, so the autofocus is set to a wider area. It's set to continuously autofocus, and the ISO can move between 100 and 3200. So, but outside of those two, I don't think we'll be using too much. I spend most of my time on AV. Here's the flash pop-up. And then this switch here switches between autofocus static, continuous, and manual focus. Don't expect to be using that too much. If you do put an old manual focus lens on it, you can switch to this manual focus here and then use this live view button. So right there you can see what the camera sees, and you can zoom in by pressing this OK button. So let's see if I can get this a little closer here. But right there you can see how I can focus easily on that trim piece there. Also, if I turn it, you can see it goes way out of focus. And I'm just turning this ring at the very end of the lens. So we'll put those back. It's a remote shutter, little door in here. That's probably not something we'll ever use. Oh yeah, another thing I just wanted to show you is on that U1 setting, I also have it set to a 2-second delay. So, might be too dark in here to focus at that setting. But here, I'll switch it to live view for a second. So, I have it set to a 2-second delay, so that means when you go to take a picture, when you press the shutter button, you can let go of the camera and it'll take a picture. So when you're on a tripod, when you press the shutter button, you generally torque the camera. See how it kind of torques? And you don't want that, movement to show up in your picture. So that's what the 2-second delay helps you with there. But I think that pretty much covers it. If you need to change the ISO, there's a button right here, and then you just use the control dial like that. I really like auto ISO. I like the camera to properly expose the image, while I think more about the composition and the depth of field. So the aperture here, that f/6, that gives you a general idea of how much will be in focus. So if I'm really close to something, like say my hand here, it will blur out all of the background. But if I take a picture of a tree that's 200 feet away, everything will be in focus. But this aperture setting here, sometimes you want to take a picture of something. Let me see if there's anything in this room. So let's say that this wrench was laying down on a table and I wanted all of it to be in focus. I might switch this to f/16 and probably make sure this is on a tripod. But if you're really close to it and you want it all to be in focus, you would need a really small aperture like that. If you're doing a portrait of a person and you want to blur out the background, for starters, you might want a faster lens. But you'd want to use the smallest number aperture, which it's confusing because a small aperture is bigger than than a small. Yeah, they got the numbers reversed to me. But you know, you'd think f16 would be bigger, but what happens is the lens stops down to a tiny like pinhole, whereas at f5.6 it's wide open. So, but yeah, that's kind of how that works. So that should be enough to get you started. If you have any questions or anything, let me know.